Magazines and newspapers took the forefront of the sexual revolution in America, taking place between the 1960s and the 1980s. The American sexual revolution refers to a time period post-World War II, in which traditional behaviors and related to everyone's sexuality and romantic relations were being challenged and ultimately changed throughout the United States. Additionally, many other controversial issues within America's society were being questioned, discussed, and changed during this time frame. Women's rights, access to birth control, abortion laws, drug use, power, and authority. By 1968, according to the article Is Anything Unprintable, Lee H. Smith states, the head of this controversial shift seems to be magazines, such as Playboy and its female counterpart, Cosmopolitan. Has anyone heard of the magazine Playboy or Cosmopolitan?
Yes.
Yes, we've all heard of those magazines. Founded in 1953, Hugh Marston Hefner's Playboy challenged the status quo for men's magazines everywhere. In 1999, Hefner said in a phone interview, I believe and I hope that Playboy has played a small part in changing the values, both social and sexual, of our time. Excuse me. Most recently, dying at the age of 91 in 2015, Hefner cannot be denied as one of the most influential characters of the American sexual revolution. According to Scott Simon, Hefner was considered progressive and hip in a time of button-down shirts and bigotry. Hefner was said to have hired black comics to perform in his club when segregation was commonplace, as well as feature crucial interviews with controversial political icons such as Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. in his magazines to its some 7 million readers. The men's magazine Playboy and Hugh Hefner changed history and helped shape the American adult entertainment industry, the one we all know of today. Today, Playboy still is considered one of the world's largest brand names. And of course, while some praise Playboy and other magazines for ushering in the certain societal changes during this revolutionary time, there are others who largely condemn them for their perceived influence on American culture. While I cannot discredit the adult entertainment industry in any way for what it has become, I can emphasize that America still has some growing up to do to keep up with the unrealistic expectations set forth by the adult entertainment industry. Studies show that absence of a well-rounded sexual education has done nothing but inadequately prepare our youth for sky-high rates of sexually transmitted diseases and infections, as well as leave young parents ill-equipped to deal emotionally and psychologically in the 21st century. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Danielle Prochaska, and today we are going to go over the current state of the American sexual education system in primary schools and how it is failing our youth, as well as how we as a people may be able to help foster changes within that system. To help young adults better understand the consequences of sex and help foster more informed decisions regarding it. Abstinence-only sex education teaches abstinence from sexual activities before marriage and maintains this approach as the only way to avoid unwed childbearing and sexually transmitted disease among our youth. Despite having huge amounts of evidence against this, abstinence education still gets a large amount of support today. The author Anne Cadenach put it best when she said, the twin concept of innocence and ignorance are vehicles for adult double standards. A child is ignorant if they don't know what adults don't want them to know, but innocent if they don't know what adults don't want them to know. In other words, we do not teach adolescents what sex is, but expect them to know what sex is about. And this type of education is not working. Our so-called American adult false realities are currently doing nothing but inadequately preparing our youth for the real world. And we cannot keep moving forward in such a dishonest manner when it comes to our children. One study carried out in the waiting room of an American pediatric hospital found 97% of all adolescents canvassed reported that they had received STD education in their primary school. Of these individuals, only 2% could name curable and uncurable diseases. Additional research found half of all new HIV infections in young people occur in young people between the ages of 15 and 24. And the number of sexually active girls has quadrupled in the past 50 years. If only 2% of the 97 can name curable sexually transmitted diseases, how can we expect them to know how to use contraceptives to protect themselves from unwanted pregnancies, let alone sexually transmitted diseases and infections? Author David Carter says that among developed countries, America is the last to create national standards for minimum essential and core content and skills in sexual education. Including comprehensive sexual education throughout primary schools curricula has been controversial global issue since the 2000s. While there are some that would argue that whether primary schools is the proper place for teaching sexual education, others argue schools are the most obvious solution, as it is common knowledge that sexual education is not mandatory and therefore not taught throughout many schools around the world. Furthermore, school nurses are the most trusted by parents to deliver sexual education, says nurse and director of education and youth outreach for Advocates and Youth, Barbara Huberman. With widespread ignorance on sexual education globally, research has found as young people reach puberty, they are not only adapting to new biological and psychological social roles, but they are doing so with a lack of information, knowledge, and support. Additionally, in 2005, the United Nations Children Fund reported teen pregnancy holding a steady 10%. More research found 48% of all women who became pregnant over a 2-year period were ages between 15 and 19 years old. So rather than seeing teen pregnancy rates decline with the promotion of abstinence, it seems to have increased over the last decade. And of the 48 states canvassed in 2005, results shared a correlation between higher stress abstinence rates and that of teen pregnancy. While states that promoted more well-rounded sexual education actually saw lower rates in teen pregnancy, and only after these findings surfaced in 2012, a more progressive stance on this issue was taken. However, the data gathered from 2015 revealed that only 11 of the 13 states in the U.S. that mandate sexual education classes be medically accurate, present factual information. Furthermore, abstinence education does nothing to address the inaccurate portrayals of sexual relations found throughout the adult entertainment industry, magazines, books, TV shows, and movies. According to one advice columnist, our adolescents face a barrage of inaccurate, unrealistic media messages on sexuality, particularly about body image, sexual performance, making sexual approaches, and gay and lesbian issues. The adult entertainment industry has no checks or balances. The term sex sells should be redefined as unrealistic sex sells. If American primary schools offered a more well-rounded sexual education, we probably wouldn't see such unrealistic depictions of sex in the industry because lies like that just wouldn't sell. One study by the University of Santa Clara published in 1987 acknowledged that while the sexually explicit cartoons featured in all of the 1985 Playboy issues were probably less hardcore than other magazines at the time, the research still supported a link between consistent exposure and unhealthy interactions between men and women. Another analysis on the issue of magazines, Playboy between 1953 and 1990, found similar conclusions, stating sexual media not only serves as reflections of sexual standards and attitudes, but also as agents in the development of sexual attitudes, including setting standards of attractiveness. Men's magazines such as Playboy changed and then reflected as well as created sexual culture, and that culture as of today has still not changed. Playboy sex culture has only transferred from magazines to porn to movies to books, but unfortunately not education. Additional data reveals that the impact the adult entertainment industry has on adolescents' expectations of sex and romantic relationships. Examination found 1 in 5 participants claim porn dented their body confidence and has given them unrealistic expectations about sex and of the opposite sex. Another study found positive links between viewing porn and organic erectile dysfunction in young, inexperienced men. Psychologist Emily Harkin says pornography could influence how people form their sexual identity, expectations, and attitudes towards sex. We as a country must commit to educating our youth with well-rounded sexual education to help them better prepare for all aspects of an adult life. Society today is literally riddled with sex everywhere, from subtle jokes in Disney and Pixar movies to fast food commercials. What started with the men's magazine Playboy turned into the adult entertainment industry, and with it came a lack of proper sexual education in a stimulating society. The adult entertainment industry and the coined phrase sex sells are not going to be the ones changing. So today, the question we need to ask ourselves isn't do we need to teach our youth about sex, but what kind of sexual education do you want your child to have? Because I don't want to teach my daughters that 50 Shades of Grey is what she should be seeking. And I don't want to teach my sons that they need to wrap it up because boys will be boys. We need to be clear, concise, and factual in non-biased, open ways to address all of the issues that come along with a stimulating society. Jenny Murray, radio host for BBC, says school children should watch pornography and analyze it, just like they do in English class. Researchers and media influencers alike have called for an educational analysis of pornography throughout primary schools in the same aspects we do the media of all genres. We do to help prevent unrealistic education expectations brought up by the media and the adult entertainment industry. And I agree. We as a country, as citizens, educators, students, and parents alike all need to help provide our youth with tools they need to be successful. This includes mandating factual, non-biased, comprehensive sexual education, as well as other core curricula throughout all primary schools nationwide. By teaching our children about sex and how to process their feelings emotionally and psychologically about sexually transmitted diseases and infections, as well as pregnancy, we are entrusting them with the knowledge it needed to decipher the world around them and make informed decisions by implementing a comprehensive sexual education program, one that includes everything I previously referenced. We will be effectively addressing the high rates of sexually transmitted diseases and infections, as well as teen pregnancy rates, and preventing kids from forming unrealistic expectations based off of media dramatizations. That is the world I want to live in. Not one where abstinence is the only way, because we already know how well that's working out. It is time to try something different. You as parents can reach out to your children's school principals, their counselors, and nurses to find out what sexual education program they're supposed to learn and get a copy of the curricula. Offer progressive ideas, and the same goes for teachers. Thank you.